Today I'm going to be talking to you about where to film your video content for marketing your business. Now, I know a lot of people out there actually don't film video content for social media, for YouTube or whatever it is. And one of the number one reasons why is because they're not really entirely sure where to film it. So on this video, I'm going to give you a few ideas. It's nothing earth-shattering. It's nothing super crazy and revolutionary that's going to change this landscape of the universe, but these are going to be a handful of things that you can actually do in order to be able to number one, get in a quiet place with no distractions, but number two, a comfortable place where you can actually film video content for your marketing purposes. Now, obviously, I keep saying marketing purposes because what I talk about on my channel is for recording social media videos, YouTube videos, podcast content, specifically for business owners. So if you're an influencer and that sort of thing, film wherever you want. I don't care. This is specifically for business owners, right? So there's a couple of really ideal tips that I will give you. Number one is obviously if you have an office, and obviously if you have a podcast recording studio, that's going to be the first place. You're probably not even watching this video in the first place. You're probably watching this video because you don't have something like that. But given that being said, it's actually a good point is that not everybody should be building out a video recording or podcast recording studio. It's just not fitting for everyone, especially if you're just beginning your journey on recording video content. Chances are, if you're watching this video, you either haven't started or you're just getting going anyway, because most people that record consistently have locations that they can record content in. So that being said, there's a handful of really small, like low-hanging fruit places that you can do. And then I'm going to give you a couple of really cool tips that most people actually don't think about. So first place is obviously like if you have an office, record the videos in your office. That's going to be the lowest hanging fruit. Because you're not going to have to rent the space, you're not going to pay the rent to space. The only disadvantages to that is distractions. So typically if you have an office, you probably have one or two employees or maybe even more than that. And if you don't tell them to not bother you during your recording session, then you're going to get bothered. You're going to have distractions. You're not going to be able to get the video out done cleanly and that sort of thing. So just make sure you set those parameters with anybody else that's in your office if you are recording video content. But additionally too, I know that most people don't have offices that maybe I'm talking to. Maybe you work from home or maybe even you're by yourself or whatever. Or maybe you even don't think that your office is suitable for recording content. Obviously, there's a build out process that you can have to make sure it looks good. But simply put, great example is right now I'm actually in my kitchen. So behind me is my living room. I have my kitchen in front of me and the camera is right on the other side of my kitchen counter. I think this looks great. It has a lot of sunlight in here, so lighting is not an issue. I don't even have any softbox lights or ring lights or anything like that in here. My lighting's great. I have some overheads and that sort of thing, and then I have a decent background behind me that's clean. You know, I had to move a couple things around to make sure it was clean for the background. But reality is that you don't need a green screen behind you. You don't need any kind of like a crazy like neon lights and stuff like that behind you. I just put on like the top 100 NFL highlights of the season. And that's kind of a great, like, just background thing that's going on in my video, right? And it can draw attention and that sort of thing. So just keep in mind that you don't have to build out something super extravagant and crazy in order to be able to make it look good. Make sure it looks clean, make sure it's you, and make sure it's just fitting for your video. So obviously the second part of this is if you don't have an office, you could film at home. Now, obviously some of the deterrents of filming at home is if you have kids, if you have animals. I have 3 dogs, and lucky for me, they're very quiet, especially if I'm recording. I don't know if they know, but when I'm recording videos or I'm on a call, they actually are super, super quiet and don't mess around. They don't play or anything or bark. So that's a good advantage, but I know most people don't have that luxury. So if you have kids, if you have animals in the house or anything else, like if there's, you know, a person working on their roof next door and that noise is going on because there's drills, there's all kinds of other tools that are going on and that sort of thing. You don't want to be filming content when you have that crazy amount of noise that's going on. You want to make sure it's distraction free, specifically for you, because for the most part, if you have dogs barking in the background or if you have lawnmowers going in the background, a lot of that can be extracted in AI software on the backside of the audio editing. But distraction wise for you, it's a little bit harder to stay on task. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so you don't want to film at your house. You don't want to film in the office. Where to go next? Now, obviously, there's a couple of like options. You could rent a studio. So there's normally, if you're in any kind of a large metropolitan area, there's going to be recording studios to be able to rent. The only problem with that is, yes, they will typically come with an engineer, somebody will run the camera for you and that sort of thing. And typically it's quiet place, soundproof. You're going to have good backgrounds and that sort of thing, but it can be expensive. So if you don't have the capital to be able to allocate to that, there's another option. And this option might cost as much as a studio, but you're going to get a lot more time. a little trick that I like to do. So I actually go on site with clients and record video with them every once in a while. And we'll set up the agenda for the day, like what topics we're covering, what they're wearing and that sort of thing. But one of the main things is location. So we want to determine where we're recording video. For the most part, most people don't want to record in the office because they don't want all the distractions. Some people will record in the office, some people will record in their home. But if they don't have those two resources, where do we film? So there's a 2-for-1 option here. Is the next option would be we either rent a Airbnb or a hotel room. So obviously with a hotel room, you have some stipulations. You're like normally, unless you're paying like $400 a night for a room, you're not going to get something that looks decent. There's not going to be good lighting in the actual hotel room and that sort of thing, unless maybe you get like presidential suite or something like that. And in some ways that could be worth it, but basically you'd have to rent it for either of these options. You'd have to rent that space for 2 nights because typically you're going to have a check-in and a check-out time. You're not going to be able to have the space for that amount of time. Now, if you can kind of cover that amount, so let's say, for instance, you could check in at 3 p.m., but then you have to check out at 12 the next day. Maybe you just plan on recording content all the way through the evening hours or early morning hours, and you do it that way. You don't have to stay the night there or anything like that. You can just get a local hotel room. But normally hotel rooms are going to be quiet. They're going to be distraction free, but there's some disadvantages to like the setup and the cleanliness and stuff like that. So just make sure if you are going to run with that option that you vet that hotel room before you book it. And obviously, depending on the price per night, for some people, it may or may not make sense. So the option of booking an Airbnb, I actually like a lot more than a hotel because Airbnbs, you're typically going to get a house. You're going to get a house maybe even similar to mine, where you have a decent background. You're going to have decor. It's going to be clean. You're going to have a lot of white. A lot of Airbnbs have actually white walls and white cabinetries and stuff like that. And that's for a reason that's we don't need to go into. But you're also going to have lighting. You're going to have windows in the house to be able to allow natural light in. You're not going to have to take softbox lights and stuff like that for your setup. You're going to be able to really keep it simple. So they're going to have couches. They're going to have chairs for you to sit in and record all your content. So I really like the option of an Airbnb, and typically per night, it's actually going to make a lot more sense to rent the Airbnb as opposed to a hotel room. So that could be something that you do. And, there's some people that they'll want to make sure they get permission from the Airbnb host. I typically will do that just for the sake of making sure because it is their house. But out of the hundreds of times I've shot video content in an Airbnb, very few, actually, I've never had an Airbnb host say no to that. As long as you're upfront with them and say like, this is for marketing videos, this isn't anything, dirty or anything like that, then they typically will be okay with it. So obviously the Airbnb is a really good option for those several reasons. So other than that, there's really just get creative. Maybe you have a patio outside, maybe you can go to a park or something like that. But there are options. There's places that you can shoot video, and you just really need to think it through. Make sure you pick 1 or 2 options. If you really like the local Airbnb that you shot videos in, don't be afraid to book it again for your next video day. And of course, let the Airbnb host know that and that sort of thing. So there's a little bit of flexibility here, but hopefully that gives you some ideas. I think that obviously nailing down your location for recording is one of the top things that you have to nail down when you're recording videos. So just have that kind of strategize, think about it a little bit, and record at a good place. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully I brought value to you. If I did, make sure to leave a comment below with any further questions that you have or any comments that you have. And then subscribe to my channel, putting out weekly content like this, 2 videos a week like this, plus a podcast video, plus shorts videos. So lots of stuff coming your way, teaching you how to do social media content, video content, podcast, YouTube content, all done the right way. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.